Apparently, Joe Biden thinks Wall Street will rein itself in, by Lauren Martinchek. As usual, I'll add my 2 cents in here and there as we go. There's no denying that with everything that's gone on over the course of the last few months alone, I have plenty of sympathy for people who feel pressured to vote for Joe Biden in order to ensure that Donald Trump does not see another 4 years in office. All right, the peanut gallery disagrees. The peanut gallery is going to vote shame the fuck out of anyone who's going to be immoral enough to vote for Joe Biden for any reason. All right, peanut gallery is done. Back to Lauren. Having said that, it feels as though with each passing day there's more merit to the concerns that the presumptive nominee is nothing more than the living embodiment of the corporate Democrats' resistance aesthetic, with no real intentions of taking any meaningful, necessary action in order to prevent the rise of anyone like Donald Trump from ever happening again. And that's the central tenet of this article. If you want somebody worse than Donald Trump, vote for Joe Biden, because you'll get him eventually. Although the Republicans might nominate a woman, maybe Betsy DeVos will run. While we might not be wise to expect much from the man who infamously told a room of wealthy donors that nothing would fundamentally change, it still doesn't make it any less unnerving to watch him aid the Democratic Party to continue to slip further and further to the right. Week after week, it feels as though those of us on the left are handed yet another reason to have little faith in the direction that the Biden administration will take the nation. Recently, former Bernie Sanders top advisor and award-winning journalist David Sirota reported on yet another red flag handed to us by Joe Biden himself. Sirota writes, "Then this past Monday, Biden told his Wall Street donors that actually he is not proposing any new legislation to rein in corporate power or change corporate behavior. And this was reported exactly nowhere, even as his campaign blasted it out to the National Press Corps. You don't have to believe me. You can click here to read the full pool report that the Biden campaign distributed to the press after his teleconference fundraiser. That event was headlined by John Gray, a top executive at the Blackstone Group, which is a private equity behemoth at the center of the climate, healthcare, housing, and pension crises. Blackstone executives had already donated $130,000 to the Biden campaign and $350,000 to a super PAC supporting him." Here's the relevant section reviewing what Biden said. Second question again from Mr. Gray, who noted that there are a bunch of business leaders on the line. What do you think is essential to get this economy rolling again? "I come from the corporate state of America many of you incorporated here," said Mr. Biden. "It used to be that corporate America had a sense of responsibility beyond just CEO salaries and shareholders. Corporate America has to change its ways. It's not going to require legislation. I'm not proposing any. We've got to think about how we deal people back in." Very tricky, Mr. Biden. It's not going to require legislation. I'm not proposing any. When engaging in conversations about politics with any libertarian or conservative, you can all but guarantee they will vehemently insist that private companies and businesses are perfectly capable of reining themselves in, with the free market as opposed to the government being a more suitable guide. Is Joe Biden, the supposed representative of the left, the supposed next FDR, really suggesting that Wall Street will rein itself in without any mandates from the federal government? In the typical corporate Democratic fashion, he seems to be wagging his finger, we've seen Elizabeth Warren do that a lot, while at the same time giving them the equivalent of the wink and the nod, letting them know that he has absolutely no intention of challenging them. I find it almost laughable that he says it's important to think about how we deal people back in, immediately following a sentence in which he made it perfectly clear he knew the answer, but was choosing to ignore it anyways. Perhaps the one thing I can respect about Joe Biden in regards to his politics is that when it comes to things like this, at least he's honest. Perhaps then it isn't him that I find so disappointing. Perhaps it's the fact that he showed us exactly who he is, And after a few phone calls from President Obama encouraging his competitors to drop out of the race and a few days of positive media, that was all it took for party loyalists to choose him anyway, subsequently destroying any last shred of hope I myself and many others in my generation in particular had in the Democratic Party. You know who else caved in, Lauren? All those wine track moms leaped to obey the mainstream media and to obey President Obama when this call came. There was a whole lot of mom energy that just leaped behind Joe Biden when this moment in history came. And I think we'd be fooling ourselves if we tried to pretend that they didn't know what they were doing. Some of these moms are afraid, I understand that. But a lot of these moms are comfortable. They know that with or without Trump, they're going to be fine. And they know that if they hate Trump and get rid of Trump, then with Biden, they'll be fine. But the working poor will not be fine. And so all of these comfortable moms are selling out the working poor. And I know that they know what they're doing. I do not want another Donald Trump. This is the real point. I do not want fear of what could potentially happen over the course of the next 4 years to blind us from the reality that electing Joe Biden is at best merely slapping a Band-Aid on a gushing wound that 4 to 8 years from now will open again and look even uglier and more ragged than before. We're in the midst of a deeper depression than we've ever faced in world history. All of those displaced workers are going to be very, very frustrated after 4 years of Joe Biden. With regard to protests, I think it's fair to say you ain't seen nothing yet. I'm not sure anyone could honestly argue that Joe Biden has what it takes to meet this moment and ensure we emerge out of it better and stronger than before. I have no intention of arguing with anyone who genuinely feels that at this moment in time, we have to vote for him to get Donald Trump out of office. But at the same time, failing to be honest with ourselves about the reality of who Joe Biden is as a politician and the circumstances we'll undoubtedly find ourselves in at the end of his administration, the more difficult our healing will be. And we'll find ourselves only more desperate and unprepared than we are now. I don't know how comfortable Lauren is, but the bottom 50% of Americans are going to be desperately uncomfortable after 4 years of Joe Biden. Joe Biden does not give an actual fuck about the working poor. He's only in alliance with corporate America. So if you take the current post-COVID economic situation and extend it 4 years from now, we're going to be in a horrible mess. Biden's response is absolutely let them eat cake. And there's not nearly enough cake.